Welcome everybody, this is Dr. G from All Is Love Media, and this is the first episode to Do You, boo-boo, do you. We are at the center of faith and culture. Growing up, I remember waking up to a smell of cleaning supplies and loud music. You know, growing up in an Afro-Latino home, we heard different types of music. And it's funny because wherever it is that I go, I tend to ask the same question: what type of music did your parents play? And what I found out, what was different in my household than a lot of majority of people, is that my parents played hip hop. Now that was a norm. I woke up to Rakim, Nas, EPMD, those different things. I woke up to those things. Those are things that literally were playing in the background, was kind of have like, if it was a movie, that was the soundtrack, if you will. Some of my very first movies that I went to, that my father took me to, was things like Beat Street, rapping, breaking, and so Boys in the Hood and so forth. These were the different movies that were family time for myself. Why am I talking about that? Is because that was my culture. That was my way of understanding the world, coming to a framework of the world and understanding and putting it into words. That was my culture. Now, what does it have to do with all of us as Catholics, as Christians, and so forth? Well, let me read something to you from Vatican II. It says that the church is not bound to a specific way of doing such because people change. Times change and cultures are the world that these people live in. The church is to be the forefront, advancing culture to coincide with the gospel message. That's Gaudium et Spes. I'm gonna keep going. The church acknowledges also new forms of art. Thus, the knowledge of God is better manifested, and the preaching of the gospel becomes clearer to human intelligence and shows itself to be relevant to man's actual conditions. You see, culture is the way that Vatican II comes to say, like, hey, if we're going to spread the good news, if we're going to meet people where they're at, we need to engage culture. And this is the culture of, what I dare to say, the average American teen and young adult. Just think of a basketball game. Just think of, you know, different sports and so forth. It's always playing in the background. Shoot, Mountain Dew, different commercials. It's always there. Hip hop culture is always there. Now, here you go. There's a few ways to adapt and look at culture. First, you can ignore culture. You can set your own self aside from, like, hey, I'm not going to do it and so forth. But what happens is, if this is the average common language of the day, then hey, you're going to have to deal with it one way or another. Now, you can also ignore it. Instead of separating yourself from it, you can literally just ignore it. But what happens whenever you ignore it is it seeps itself in. I mean, just look at the different examples that I gave you. You can copy it, like literally copy it. And this is where you see those different types of, I'm gonna just use the word cultural appropriation and so forth that we see. Now, you can also cultivate it. What do I mean by cultivate it? You can sit there and make your own culture and so forth. And this is exactly why I would dare to say that Acts 17, that Paul sits there whenever he goes into the city of Athens and he sees all these different gods and he meets man right where they're at, and he shares the gospel message from, you know, the average everyday culture of there, and he spoke to them in that language. He used that as an entry point to infuse the gospel message. In fact, whenever you think about it, that's sort of a way of being a missionary. Insert my boy Pope Francis, whom I absolutely love. Paragraph 27 from The Joy of the Gospel. He says, every option that is a missionary, that's every one of us, and post capable of transforming everything so that the church customs, ways of doing things, times and schedules, language and structures can be suitably challenged for today's world rather than her self-preservation. What he's getting at is common language in the church world today is this missionary option, this missionary mandate that we're all called to. It's no different than Matthew 28. It's going out into the world instead of waiting for everybody to come to us, but going out into the world, engaging the world, cultivating culture, and making it in the common language of just meeting people right where they're at. This is what we're called to do. And whenever you do that, especially in the American culture, you're a little bit more of you. Why am I talking about you and all these different things? Is because that's what this ministry is all about. This ministry that you encompass on, this ministry, this is the first video, is that we are here to engage, more specifically, cultivate culture. Now, I know that may make some people feel a little bit uncomfortable, but this is why the missionary mandate is such a foundation for the way that we do things. So you see, because when you do this, you see that you can actually do you. And why am I saying that? That is no different than St. Irenaeus says, the glory of God is man fully alive. Because when you're fully alive, you're fully in God, and you look at this world as a way, one, to share who it is that you are, who fully God is in you, but also bring people the good news, the culture. So whenever you do that, you do you. Do you, boo-boo. It's Dr. G, All Is Love Media. We out.